Hi, this is J.R. Fibonacci. I am reading from a blog called Respect versus Loyalty to What Isn't Working. So this blog originated as some text messages I was sending to my friend Dr. Carl Freestone. I took what I had written to him, copied it, pasted it, and elaborated on it and made it into this blog. I'm not going to be making reference to the pictures that are on the blog, but there are some interesting pictures. If you're reading along on the blog, you'll see those as we go. So, the background is we're talking about what's important in business and what's important to me in my life. And one of the things that I am identifying as potentially important in the success of business is identifying how loyal people are to what isn't working well for them. So I consider people's loyalty to what isn't working well to be an issue for me in my life and in my business. We could distinguish ourselves, like as people or as business people, by emphasizing a contrast between this idea of loyalty, whether or not something's working well, and respect. And we could use other phrases and other terminology, but a commitment to actual results is what respect is about. So here's something to consider. I propose that we're in the midst of systems specifically designed to distract, deceive, confuse, frustrate, and disempower us. They teach us to reject ourselves. They train or program us to reject ourselves, including the rejecting of certain emotions in particular. So we can come out of the beast, but not by staying loyal to it. But we can come out of it, this system of ineffectiveness, we can come out of it. We can shift from a conversation for either loyalty or reform, either loyalty to the system or reform of the system, to a conversation for respect. Not only a respect for the system, but a respect for what we value, respect for emotions, a respect for the system as well. So coming out of the beast is not killing the beast from inside of it. It's not making the beast better or taming it. The beast is the beast. The system is the system. Coming out of the beast means to recognize the system for what it is and potentially just respect it. So when I say the beast, a lot of people will, when we're talking about the beast, they'll think, oh, you mean symbolically the evil system. Well, yes, the system that people call evil is what I mean, but it's not just that. The beast is not just an institution, but it's the program that happens through the beast, through the system. So through the institutional social system, there's a system of thinking, a system of ways of relating. So the beast is a way of relating. It's a kind of a conversation. So when I say come out of the beast, I mean come out of a particular kind of conversation that produces ineffectiveness, self-rejection, disappointment, frustration, and so on. Ongoing disappointment and frustration. So we can respect the system and even occasionally use it, from the social systems to conversational models. We can use them without having a terrified loyalty to either defending it or reforming it, telling everybody how it should be and how they should be, and shaming people and so forth. So we can begin by saying to people, what do you think about this idea that there may be systems that train us to be loyal to the systems to the detriment of those people? What do you think about that idea? Do you think an institution would ever program people to be loyal to the institution rather than loyal to their own family, even at the expense of their own family, at their own interests? Yes? No? My wife's laying on my lap, nodding yes. I'm looking down at her and she's nodding yes. But she's not speaking. You want to say yes? out loud? No. She's trying not to be heard even as she's laughing. If we want a totally new dynamic, we must be willing to recognize old patterns and occasionally be willing even to discard those old patterns. Or try something new. Maybe not discard them, but occasionally pause them, refine them, do something a little different than what we've been habitually doing. So how about just engaging with people directly in a remarkable conversation, or potentially a remarkable conversation? That could be a new thing. I occasionally find it frustrating to interact with people, and I don't mean just specific people, but certainly I could mention specific people that I found it challenging to interact with, which means that I interacted with them often. I must have found it valuable to interact with them, or I had some interest that I thought, well, this interest is going to be served by interacting with them. So that's the origin of frustration, is some value and commitment, some desire. So occasionally I find it frustrating to interact with people. Sometimes with computers, sometimes with people, whatever it may be. Sometimes I get frustrated, in particular by interacting with people. I propose that many people, even myself perhaps, have had an undistinguished commitment to be loyal to what is not working. That hidden commitment to what is not even working blocks the experience of simple disappointment, and thus builds into frustration. This is not working, but it should. I just knocked down my mouse. It shouldn't have happened like that, or it shouldn't be like that. That's distinct from just disappointment. Okay, I dropped my mouse, and how did it happen? Because I hit the thing here and it fell off. I'm not frustrated about that. I might be disappointed, but it's not really that disappointing. But if I relate to something as it shouldn't be, and I'm disappointed about it, but I shouldn't be disappointed, and it shouldn't be disappointing, that's frustrating. That is what frustration is. This is not working, so I'm disappointed, but it should be working, so I'm further frustrated about this thing of interest to me, or I wouldn't be talking about it. I would only care that something is not working because I'm disappointed. Maybe I should say it this way. I'd only be disappointed that something's not working because I care. I'd only care that it's not working because I care about it in general. I would only say, but it should, out of naive loyalty. I'd only say it should be working out of naive loyalty to some expectation that a particular process is going to be successful in having something work or produce certain results. And I'm calling that naive because it's not a commitment to results. If I'm stuck in, I keep trying this frustrating method over and over, and it's not working, and I'm not just being present to my own disappointment quickly, getting the feedback of disappointment, exploring a new method. Instead, I'm loyal to a method that isn't working, and what naturally happens when I'm loyal to a method that isn't working, eventually I get frustrated. So, the loyalty is an issue. The loyalty to what isn't working represses the disappointment until I eventually get frustrated with the system. The system. Or, that one person. So the loyalty to some method or some expectation represses just plainly expressing disappointment until I eventually get frustrated. Not even recognizing yet what the dynamic is behind the frustration, which could be something like the fact that a hammer is not a saw. So I'm relating to the hammer not being a saw as a problem. Sometimes, if I'm frustrated, I keep trying to use the hammer to saw the wood, to cut the wood, and I keep hammering it, and it's not cutting. And I keep hammering it, and it's still not cutting, and it should, because I'm loyal to this idea that the hammer, which has no sharp edge, is going to somehow behave as if it was something that had a sharp edge, and I keep getting frustrated because I'm not just being plainly present to my disappointment that, okay, I tried the hammer and it didn't do the thing I wanted it to do. No big deal, necessarily, unless I'm loyal to only using hammers. And I don't want to ever use a saw because saws are for those kind of people, and I'm not one of those kind of people. I am a good person, and good people use hammers, and we do not use saws. And therefore, because of that loyalty to whatever complicated, confusing BS idea that might be programmed into us through systems of indoctrination, because of that loyalty, I could actually get really upset that my hammer is not a saw. When in fact, it's not inherently upsetting that a hammer is not a saw. You know what else You know what else a hammer isn't? Taco. It's not a taco. I'm serious. A hammer is also not an avocado. A hammer is also not a chair. A chair. You people are acting like I'm waiting for you guys to answer, and you're like, you're not. Did you say chair? Did you even try? All right. So a hammer should be more like a saw. That is loyalty that gives us this kind of model that presents us with frustration. A hammer should be more like a saw. Why? Well, I don't know why. That's actually kind of a weird thing. Once I recognize that loyalty to the idea that a hammer should be like a saw, I just kind of go, well, you know what? A hammer isn't a saw. Why should a hammer be more like a saw? Should a hammer be more like a taco or more like a saw? So, we can have these kind of debates, the intellectual masturbation kind of debates of, well, should a hammer be more like a saw or more like a taco or more like a chair? And those things are ultimately potentially just socializing. At best, they're socializing. They could be funny, they could be humorous, they could be fun, but there's never going to be a ultimate resolution to the debate of whether hammers should be more like saws, chairs, or tacos. So, once I admit that I've reached a point of frustration, not just disappointed, but frustrated, that I'm open to input from another person. It might be, if I'm frustrated with one other person, I might go to a third person to talk about my frustration and sort things out. But I'm open to input. When I'm at the point of disappointed, I might be open to input from another person, but I might be suppressing my disappointment and wait until I get really frustrated before I'm willing to say, oh, that other person isn't as much of a saw as they should be, and that's why I'm coming to you because of them, not because I have any effectiveness in my skill set. I'm not coming for coaching. I'm coming to complain and to report this unsaw-like person, this unchair-like person. They're not even very much like an avocado or a taco. So I go in that mode of frustration, or at least have a potential openness to interact with other people and get assistance from other people. They may be able to help me, not only in regard to being effective in regard to the specific issue, but they may be able to assist me in unwinding an underlying catalyst, an underlying presumption, a catalyst for frustration, ineffectiveness, despair, self-rejection, and so on. Upset. When I am merely disappointed, though, not frustrated, but merely disappointed, I can still explore new methods on my own. I'm still curious. Okay, I'm disappointed about that. Let's try something else then. However, when I'm experiencing this distress of frustration, then assistance can be very beneficial, even an outside interruption. Somebody comes in and intervenes and interrupts and says, hey, you know what? I think you might be frustrated. Have I ever said that to anybody? So, when somebody seems distressed or frustrated or like tense or, maybe even just shy, then that might be because there is a loyalty to something that isn't working, or an idea or a presumption that isn't helpful. So how is all of this that I'm saying unusually relevant? We are trained to be so loyal that we repress disappointment in the system until we reach a point of frustration. Further, in the absence of competent leadership, we direct our frustration toward investing in reforms that may never arise, and may not be satisfying even if they do arise. So we invest in reforming the system. That's not respecting the system. We're not just letting the system be. We're judging the system as wrong and attempting to reform it. And there, of course, are times when that may be exactly what there is to do. But it may be a source of potential frustration and disappointment, especially if we relate to it as something that should work. If we relate to our movement to reform things not as something that we're desperate in having it be successful, and that unless it's successful, we're not going to go to heaven, or we're going to be, a failure or something like that. If we're trying to compensate for self-rejection or being a failure as an identity, political reform probably is ultimately going to be unsatisfying. Consider, however, that all people who want some kind of systemic reform actually see systemic reform as a method to produce the results that they really desire in their own lives. Some particular kind of result they really want, and the only method they can think of to pursue that result is systematic reform. Woe unto them. And when I say woe unto them, I mean we can be empathetic and sympathetic to that state of very limited sense of power. The only expression that they see as available to them is through systematic reform. Wow, that can be a really long, slow process. So people that really desire certain results and see systemic reform as the best method or the only method to produce those results may be operating in that way because they've been trained to be so deluded that they think reform is the best way to get those personal results, when it may not be. When they may be limiting their range of potential actions to produce that valued result because of their training, because of their programming, because they're thinking, well, I need to reform things. If my investment in real estate, let's say I take 93% of my investment capacity and put it into real estate, and then real estate markets aren't going the way I want them to, I have two general options: sell my real estate or go for political reform to make my bad investment choice better. And that's really how a lot of people relate to governments, is they want governments to save them from the natural consequences of their own choices. Another alternative is to get disappointed quickly if the results are disappointing. Just get that and be empowered by that, and then alter the behaviors. So those people in that situation where they are frustrated and don't know what to do, they admit that they're frustrated. They may not even admit that they're disappointed, but they admit they're frustrated. And maybe they're angry at, those traitor politicians or the Republicans or the Democrats or whatever. They get upset, and that's a signal that they might be open to coaching and effective leadership, real reform in their own life, not systemic reform, but personal reform. In regard to health, there are amazing results available by methods unfamiliar to most of the masses. And you probably know of some set of results that are available to the masses that aren't especially popular. Most of the people who would be watching this video probably already aware of some stuff that's pretty amazing, but it's not very well known. I am proposing to you that there's a huge realm of amazing results that you are not yet aware of and may never be aware of, because the set of results that are available are always going to be beyond one individual's awareness of all the methods available and all the results available. Like, don't expect to ever know it all about the amazing results available through alternative health methods or whatever, through a really rigorous scientific study of physiology and developmental nutrition and so forth. People who study these things really well not only find amazing results, but they find ongoing subject matters to keep studying further. We study the hormone leptin, then we study the hormone insulin, and all these different things. We keep studying, we keep learning, and more amazing results are available over time. So if you think you know all the results available to you, that's probably a sign that you have reached points of saturation, maybe satisfaction, and you aren't looking any further. Well, while you're not looking, there's new research going on. While you're reading the book published 2 years ago or the article published 2 months ago, somebody else has already done research 100 years ago or 10 minutes ago. They just finished their research that has even more amazing results. So that's actually kind of interesting. Everything you already know that you already find amazing and like way beyond what the mainstream knows about, that's a fraction of the amazing results available to you. In regard to wealth and finances, there are also shocking results already available to you, but not through familiar methods. You don't know about the results. You don't know about the methods. Whatever you do know, there's something more amazing that's already happening and something more amazing that isn't even happening yet that's going to be developed soon or is under development now. The idea that the government is going to save me from the natural consequences of my own actions, is an idea of desperation, as in despair. Those who are frustrated and terrified may be so terrified of simply stating their frustration, because they're so loyal to the system, that they desperately hope for a government salvation. We need this campaign to work. We need this candidate to be successful. And then the government, which is not providing salvation now, will in the future. Or the government is already providing salvation for us, and we count on them to continue to do so because that allows me to not have to be related to my own actions and to refine my own actions. I can just be loyal to the system, and just based on my loyalty, rather than a respect for natural principles and natural laws, I can ignore health or ignore the basic principles of wealth and still have fantastic results. Well, probably not, or not as fantastic as we might have through diligent research and experimentation and leading the way. The desperate hope that the government will save me or save us, I also call despair. It's a form of paranoia. It is a slow panic. The government will save us. I hope. People don't say, I hope. But that's really what's there when they say, well, the government will save us. The government will save us. I hope. I hope they'll save us. I mean, I don't say that, but that's what's really there. So an alternative is to convert frustration toward initiative. One pathway for converting frustration to initiative is rage. Another is grief. Oh my. As in expressing disappointment, that's grief. That's another method of converting energy to initiative. Frustrating energy to initiative. If I'm frustrating my expression of grief or repressing my expression of grief, or if I'm frustrating my expression of rage, then there's a lot of energy involved in that. I've got the initial energy, I've got the frustrating of it, the blocking of it, and all of that energy could be used towards new initiatives. I often find that the direct expression of either rage or grief tend to produce a clear recognition of why I care. Why am I grieving? Why am I raging about it? Well, I tend to, once I start expressing it or someone else does, it tends to be obvious what is the issue. Why do I care? Why do I value this subject? What do I appreciate that is missing or that was present and then, or is present and I'm concerned might become absent or might diminish? And eventually expressing rage and frustration and grief can resolve into... Stop smiling at me. Why do you keep smiling at me? It can resolve into laughter. Laughter! It's funny. It's funny. She's laughing. I'm doing this dramatic. Look, this is important stuff. I don't know if you can hear her giggling. She's like Rain Man over there under her breath. Making fun of me. Oh, now she's making the I'm going to choke you. By the way, whenever I stick my tongue out at her over there, I'm only doing it because she did it to me first. I have a good reason. It's very frustrating. You're laughing at me, aren't you? So laughter, by the way, is a tremendous relief sometimes. I don't know if you're aware of that. Much more powerful than a mere sigh. Oh, you missed, by the way, when you went upstairs, you missed all the good part. Okay. Should I back up? No, we'll just skip that. Okay, are you willing to welcome your own emotional experiences? Oh, she gives me a nod. That's great. Thank you. Congratulations, by the way. Are you willing to divest from what is not working well? And to instead explore a new conversation that respects emotions as sources of useful, valuable feedback? Oh, she said, okay, let me ask again. I'll give you a second chance. Are you willing to divest from what is not working well and to instead explore a new conversation that respects emotions as sources of valuable feedback? Yes or no? Are you willing to explore a new conversation that respects That's Spanish for
That's tiring.
You're so tiring. Are you willing to invest in a new conversation that respects the system, recognizing what it is and what it's not? Yeah, that's not a big deal for her. And finally, are you willing to explore a new conversation that respects the results that are most attractive to you? I don't know why I'm being so... I guess
I don't know.
I'm just trying to get her to say stuff so you can hear that she's really there. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just entertaining myself. I'm amusing myself, and I'm being loud and dramatic sometimes. If you got your headphones on, I apologize. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. Okay, and again. So we're almost done. So if you're willing to do all those things that you just said you're willing to do, which is, again, respect your emotions as sources of valuable feedback, number one. Respect the system, recognize what it is and what it is not, number two. And respect the results that are most attractive to you, number three. If you're willing to do those things, then I invite you to make a comment. Or share this video or anything like that. Share this content. Thank you for your willingness to respect what you are rather than reject what you are and pretend to be something else. Or pretend that you should be something else. Except if you are pretending that you should be something else, then you can just accept that you've been pretending that you should be something else. That's fine too. If you've been rejecting what you are and that's what you've been doing, you can accept that what you've been doing is rejecting what you are. And that is the end of the respect versus loyalty to what isn't working. Wow. Okay. She's like speaking. She's not just making gestures at me. All right. Cheers. Comment, share it, like it. Love it or leave it.